Hello and welcome. We are live. Welcome everyone out there in Facebook and YouTube land. Um, Today this is Ronnie and Yasheka's Dating Discussions, and today we are going to talk about some things that we talked about before, but we're going to take it up a notch. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Yasheka Foster, affectionately known as the Artist of Dating, and my handsome co-host.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronnie Walker. I am the master coach of exceptional dating, relationships, and sex. And welcome to be here as part again. Happy New Year to everyone again as we cough off into 2022.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so as we get right into it, I'm not going to do our little generic commercial. We are so done with the commercials, right? We're going to get us a real commercial one day. If you guys did not watch the 12 Days Till Christmas, go back and view that, because if you've watched that, then you'll kind of understand how we filter over into what we're talking about today, which is your dating mindset with the New Year attitude. Um, and we felt like this was necessary to kind of go back to this area and kind of just really reiterate some things that we were discussing, so that you guys can get to the part of this life, or this part of this journey of self discovery and dating intentionally with it, and that way you can get to the love. And so we want to make sure that as we start this new year off, and as we start this new year off, we're really approaching it from a mindset of positivity, and just maybe getting rid of some of those cobwebs or whatever that we had in our minds before about dating in this area. And so, if you are doing this for the first time, like I said, make sure that you allow StreamYard access to you, so that we can know who's making the comments, if there's comments to be made. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel here on Facebook as well as in YouTube, and leave a comment to let us know that you were here or that you're here. Just say something, say, hey, how you doing, whatever. Just let us know that you're here. And if you're catching this on a replay, be sure to hashtag replay. So let's get into it.
All right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. Listen, and I really wanted to emphasize the Happy New Year. And I felt today was very important because this is the week or the month we like to deem as new beginnings. So we've heard the resolutions, we know the parties, and even with all that is going on, when we look at the space that we're in time, in this country, and in this world, what is happening is people have really, for the first time for many, have discovered that time is short. Now, we all say that, but then again, a lot of us, um, a lot of this is hitting us close to home. So many of us, in terms of the regular, not maybe the best choice of word, the spaces where we are now celebrating for the first time of someone who is no longer with us, there is a lot of unexpected passings that's going on. And we see this during this particular time. And so that has put a sense of urgency in how we navigate our life. And it is often said that people change either through inspiration or desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, I really wanted to revisit this, and I went over this with Yashika and I as we discussed this. I want to go over the 12 days before Christmas that we did, and one in particular was the emotional regulation, because emotions are running very high still. A lot of us had anticipated that things would be a little bit better, and things haven't gotten better. In fact, in some places they've gotten worse, but they're still moving forward with their plans for a new year. They've decided that even with all this going on, they're going to have a brand new attitude. And as Yashika and I cover the dating and relationship and sex aspect of this, for to now, at least for tonight, I just want to cover the dating, because now this is a new year, new me attitude, and what that means for emotional regulations. So now, one of the reasons I want to go over this, well, let's just say the second reason, is because we know we've all heard this before. So Yashika, when she spoke of the emotional regulations in a prior conversation that we had, she spoke very clearly of being honest about how you're feeling, being honest about your emotion, and recognizing that. So, with that being said, here we are, new year, new me. Well, are you deciding that at this point now, moving forward, you are going to be honest about your emotions? Not only that, well, how do you know this? Well, are you prepared that be prepared because there are going to be those peoples outside of yourself that has heard the new year me attitude from you. And they may try to see if you're going to hold tight to that, which means they may say some things that may trigger some of your emotions. And are you prepared for that? So, you may have been prepared before, but you may have replied in a place that was a point of no return. Or are you going to reply in a way that they recognize, oh, okay, maybe he or she is on a new year, new me space. So be honest about this. And be honest whether or not that as you're moving forward into this new year and regulating your emotions, that you really truly do have a strategy, some resources. Again, this is where going back to listening to what we shared over the 12 days. I'm telling you, it was some very valuable stuff that Yashika and I shared that you could use moving forward. If you use what we've shared with you just in those 12 days, over the next 90 days, I can promise you your dating experiences will phenomenally change for the better. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will find Mr. or Mrs. Right, but here's what I guarantee you it will do. It will put you in a better mind space that at the end of it, you won't feel as frustrated, disgusted, or whatever, or you will meet Mr. or Mrs. Right. And it's one of two. So either with that, you'll be much closer. And this is something that you can quantify. So if you're going to now be honest, you now have the tools. What has changed? What are you going to do different to regulate your emotions and to make sure they stay that way as opposed to the way you handled them last year? Because let's face it, there are going to be some things that you're going to do different this year that you're going to do last year for whatever emotion. So let's just say, okay, I am now going to lose weight. I want to be more competitive in this physical space now. I'm going to take on a better eating plan and not look at it just as a diet. This is going to now be a lifestyle, because you don't want to think diet separate. So you're changing your mindset about food for a lifestyle. And see, let's face it now, we all know food does a lot to one's emotions. And it can make you feel fulfilled. And a change can also put you through some grumpy spaces because of the cravings of what you're used to. So how are you going to handle those emotions when that happens? Are you replacing with something healthy? Or are you going to revert back to what you used to do? And then that emotion of frustration comes on because you felt all is lost. I'm just going to give it up and I'm going to say to you, no, don't do that. Then you're going to now exercise. And exercise plays a lot into your emotions when you talk about a sense of accomplishment, the endorphins that happens in the brain, which triggers what gives you a better outlook. So let's just say I can trust you. Trust me on this one. And I'm sure, in some spaces, Yashika's also shared this. And she will share, I guarantee she'll agree because she is very good in terms of we talk about the athletics and the way she's a runner and in her past and present as well. And how it affects your body and your mood and things of this nature. That will lend itself to your attitude, let's just say that evening on a date. You're unstoppable at this point. And if he or she doesn't get it and doesn't see the who you're about and whatever, that's okay. You're okay with that as opposed to, oh, this bum, he's just another dusty here and, things of this nature. No, it's okay. You're regulating your emotions now. You're in a better path. Or the date is wonderful. And whereas before, you're already walking this guy down the aisle or walking her down the aisle you're now ready to say, you know what, okay, let me pull up here, because before this got me into a sense of space, and then I'm disappointed, and then I'm mad, and I want to give up. Now you're saying, you know what, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to process what we discovered, really take some time to listen to what he or she said, you know, and then you're going to repeat the pattern again. So you're going to get up, you're going to have a better breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You're going to do your workout either in the early morning or whatever. And again, all of this is a process. It's making you feel that much better. And so maybe you have another date the next day. And you just move forward. And this is all a change. So everything that you are changing as you go into the new year plays a part in your emotion. And you will find that as you go into this new routine, that the way you process the challenges on the job, the business, all plays a part of that. And you may not be as sensitive, well, you probably won't be as sensitive as you're used to in 2021 going into this next year. So I hope I didn't go too far there, Yasheka, but I just really wanted to emphasize that if we're doing something different, it is a plus in that space, because it does touch our emotions, because how we handle it is going to play a part in that.
No, I get it. And I totally agree with you. And I think one of the areas that people need to really be cognizant of is when they are trying to look at things from a different headspace, a different, just through a different set of eyes, right? Is to make sure that they don't have a certain level of expectations out of people. And I think that when you go into something, especially with this new year, new mindset, you definitely want to change some things, because I think that's a problem that many people have a lot of times, and myself included sometimes, is just having a certain expectation from someone or something. And then when you get it or it's there or whatever, you're not satisfied with it because you set the expectations too high. You know what I mean? It could be anything, but sometimes people want to, when they go out with someone for the first time, they want to, because they're comparing it to maybe something they did before. When I went out with this person, as soon as I met them, I felt it. I felt this, I felt that. That may not be the same space for this person. You know what I mean? Because you're probably at a different place in life. Maybe you're a little bit more reserved, so maybe you didn't let it flow freely. So in other words, just because you didn't feel whatever it was you thought you needed to feel on that first day, take into consideration your mindset now versus then, or what you were going through then versus now. And so sometimes it's okay to give that person a second date, because you never know. It might have just been you in a different space and not necessarily the connection wasn't there.
Right. Oh, very well, perfectly said. Yes. Again, remember, you now, new year, new me, and doesn't mean everybody is embracing that, and it doesn't mean that if they aren't, that there's something wrong with them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a perfect analogy. And again, so let's talk about it in the space of the people that now you're around when we talk about changes. You may need to separate yourself or distance yourself in terms of a space that's not as often with the people around you. Mm-hmm. Because if they're not conducive to your growth, so you're working on your growth, then you can't grow. So that may involve having a discussion with them. Mm-hmm. And during this discussion, I can assure you, they're going to say some things and react to some things in ways that you may not be prepared for. Or you may be, but here's what's going to change. Because you've taken on this new space, you're not going to react the same way you used to. So again, when we talk about this emotional regulation, we're really cognizant of our feelings. And what used to trigger us to have a certain reaction is no longer the case. Absolutely. So you're coming from a space of understanding and saying, hey, you know what? I can understand why you feel this way. But I need you to understand, and they may not understand, this direction that I'm taking. And explain to them, I've been attempting to do this for the past 2-3 years to no results. And I realized it wasn't them, it was me. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love for you to be a part of the journey. And maybe there's some things that you can learn and embrace from my actions. And you matter to me because this is one of the reasons why I'm sitting down having this conversation with you. But again, explain to them that you are still moving forward. And regardless of how this conversation ends, emotionally, you're going to embrace that, accept it, and you're going to continue on your path. Now, that's not to say that you may feel a little disappointed. I mean, you may cry or something, you know. But in the end, something has to change. And so part of the emotional regulation is realizing that you may receive an action that is unexpected. So you need to be prepared for that. And it doesn't always have to be if they snap, you snap back. You just sit back, process it now. Whereas before you were given the clap back because no one talks to you in this kind of way. So the same way, and it's different and much deeper when you're talking to someone you've known for some time as opposed to a stranger you've spoken to over the phone for a couple of times and now you're sitting face to face over dinner. But nonetheless, you're still dealing with emotions. Mm-hmm. And so take the time to really process this. And this is something that you can just write out as well. I suggest you just writing this out. That if this happens, this is how I used to respond to it. Now this is how I'm going to respond to it. And this helps you. Are you going to get it right all the time? Of course not. We're human. But now you're cognizant of it. And this is all part of your growth as you're going into this new year, new me attitude. Please don't forget the emotional regulation in this space, because that definitely have to change if you're going to grow in this space.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something about, being emotional, and I think with some people, they'll find themselves being emotional when they meet a person and realizing it from the beginning that that person is not someone for them. And this comes from, like, if you're growing and you realize that you attract a certain type of people. And like when we were talking the other day in our 12 days of Christmas, we talked about the caregiver, the codependent, the parent, the person who, just whatever, right? As you evolve and as you grow, you'll notice that you're used to attracting a certain type of person. You may be a person that attracts, maybe someone who is, still broken. But then when you're growing and you evolving and you have a new mindset around dating and what's good for you and what's not good for you, you realize that you're outgrowing that role that you used to play before. Because maybe you were the parent before in a relationship, or maybe you were the person who took care of everything, or whatever. But then you realize now that no longer works for you. And so you recognize someone who fits the description, differently. I mean, they fit the description. I did a video the other day called dating the same person with a different face, because that's pretty much what we're doing. We date the same people with a different face. And so once you recognize that and you realize that particular way of dating, or the people that you typically attract because of the role that you play in a relationship, is no longer working for you, it may bring on some emotional, some emotional things, because, you may shed a few tears. You may, try to understand some things, right? Because that's just you growing and stretching. That's you realizing that, I don't want to be that person anymore. So therefore, me attracting these people no longer works for me. And sometimes that could be a scary, scary process for some people to realize that they're growing, because sometimes even in dating, we do things that we're comfortable with. And if you're used to playing a certain role, like if you're the caregiver in a relationship, or the parent in the relationship, you used to attracting people that need you to be the parent, or or the person who's taking care of everything, the alpha person or whatever. You're used to that as being your role. And so then you realize that doesn't work for you anymore. You don't want to try to fix someone else or hoping that person heals or you can help them heal. So if that's you and you stretching a little bit, then welcome it, because that's what change is about, and that's what evolution is about when it comes to us as people and growth. You're on mute.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Oh, good. That's exceptionally good. Because, look, one thing is for sure, you are going to feel some fear.
Mhm.
This whole set of growth. You know, I remember, I remember Percy. So give Percy a story when I realized that I was not the same person. When it came to the space of dating or new relationships, of there was so much. I can be in a relationship and there's so much that was great about it. But then I, discovered some things that I realized that this was about to, there was a train wreck about to happen. And so knowing that I'm willing to put in the work to move this along and the other person isn't, then you already know. And you're looking for ways to try to finagle and see if there's a way that I understand why they're there. But see, if only one's person working on something that you both know you need to work on, you're skating uphill. And see, part of that growth with me was having the courage to say goodbye. That as much as you care for this person, what you don't want to do is get to a space. And listen to me close. Many people do this. So many of my people I've consulted and do coaching with. You don't want to get to a space where you resent the person. That's a very strong, powerful, deep, or hate the, people use different words, but you don't want to do that. So you want to explain your position with as much care, love, and intention as you care, but just say, look, I love me more. Like, whatever the things that you have for this person, but this is what, and we've had this conversation over and over, because it may not happen. A perfect world, yeah, it all happens. Yeah, we need to do this. Yeah, we need to, great, let's go to counseling or coaching or whatever it may be. But this person's adamant. And so you have to, because what people tend to do is they get scared, because now they got to go back out there again into the unfamiliar and start all over again when you figure that you're, as a poker to say, you're pot heavy or pot deep or whatever it is, that you're in there and you just figure, let me just, maybe I'll hit one on the river. You think, okay, for my poker people, but you get it. You're on that 1 yard line and just maybe. But we all know, ladies and gentlemen, that even if I'm using this football analogy, you can be on the 1 yard line and still not make it to that touchdown. And so this is what you see in this relationship. And so that growth with me is knowing when to say that this is not going to work. And well, as wonderful as I think this person is, and as wonderful as much as I care for this person, I already know. And even then she, realized that, yeah, I'm just not ready to go down that. So they were willing to go take a chance on a whole new relationship, then just try to work on this. And that didn't work for me. So these are those kinds of steps that you're going to make when you're looking to someone new. If now you are looking for someone who, because now you've become more adventurous. So now you're putting on your dating profile, you're looking for someone who's more adventurous. Maybe you want to do some outdoorsy type things, whereas before you was, that was just not something you want to do.
Mhm.
And so with that comes a whole new set of people. And again, it's that one small tweak can elicit some fears that just like, oh my goodness, am I really ready? What if I really don't like this? Okay, well then at least you try. But that's all part of growth. Or you may meet a whole new different person, and that's okay. But understand and embrace and accept the fear, as Yasheka said in that podcast. That be honest about it. Be honest about it. And if that fear comes up, to be honest about the fear and just recognize it for what it is. And the people use that as an acronym for false evidence appearing real. So it's not really real. It's just something that you feel in your gut. But stay the course.
Yeah.
Stay the course, because that's what growth is about seeing the fear, addressing it, eliminating, or use a fear for fuel to move forward in that dating world.
Yeah. And it's okay to be, to take chances. You know what I mean? Like, I know for one at one part, I had to, I know this was a few years ago. I would say probably about, it was before I retired. So I know it's been more than 5 years ago. I noticed that when I was meeting men, it seemed like all the men that I met were coming out of relationships. Like they had just gotten divorced or they was in a process of a divorce or whatever. And I really had to do some soul searching to understand why is it that I was attracting those type of people. And so I also had to look at myself as to, because I wouldn't say anything. These were people that would come to me. And so I realized that because of sometimes people are going through something and they want someone to fill a certain gap. So because I had been told I carry myself as a married woman, they assumed that I was in that, in other words, I would be a good wife. You know what I mean? Not really getting to know who I was, but they knew that they were coming out of one situation. And so for them, they looked at it like, well, she seems like wife material, which means that she'll take care of this, she'll do whatever their idea of a wife was. So it got to the point where even though I knew that a lot of it was them, I also had to realize that it was something about me as well. Because I mean, it was like four guys in a row were coming out of something. And I'm like, well, what the hell? Like, do I have this big old thing over my head that says, date me if you're coming out of a relationship? And so I had to take a pause for a minute and just do some self evaluation and understand what was it about me. And then I noticed that when we didn't work out as friends, I mean, excuse me, as, of course, if you're coming out of something, I need you to be free and whole. I realized then that they wanted to be friends. And so I was like, well, that's probably what you want anyway. You know what I mean? Because maybe I seem like a cool chick. And so I say all that to say that sometimes we do, no matter what happens, we have to take a look at ourselves. Because I knew that I wasn't confronting these people. They were literally coming up to me, whether it was, at work or something, or, I'm out and about. I wasn't, speaking at them or anything. They was coming up to me. And it seemed that the trend was that they were all coming out of something. And so I did have to realize that maybe I did carry myself a certain way. And now when a guy approaches me, that's the first thing I ask, are you in a relationship? Before we exchange numbers, are you in a relationship? Are you coming out of a relationship? I even had one gentleman tell me that that him and his wife lived together, but they weren't together. And I was like, say what now? He said they lived together, but they weren't together. He says they more or less, because of their culture, that they couldn't live in, they had to be in the same house because he had to provide for them. I'm like, so you take care of your wife and your kids? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, that sounds like a marriage to me, I'm like, and he was like, I was like, so do y'all bring people home? He's like, no, she can't bring anybody to the house. Yeah, you guys are still married, so I'm gonna need you to go head on, like stop it, stop it, stop. If I can't call your house or come to your house, you married, okay? But it was just the audacity. But, it was one of those things where, like I said, I had to see, I knew that men, they kind of feel certain things or they can look at certain things. But I also realized that there was a part of me that maybe I needed to fine tune. I don't know if I've solved the problem. I do know that I haven't had any men to come up to me that were coming out of marriages. And, I don't know, maybe because of COVID shut everything down. And so it's not as, you're not out and about as much. But I noticed that I haven't had any in a long time who have come up to me and they were coming out of something. The ones that I spoke with, they are all single and whatever. So I said, okay, well, whatever it was that I had, maybe I've changed it a little bit, I'm glad to say. So I don't know what it was, but I do know that I had to change some things in me. Whatever vibe I was giving off, I needed to be aware of that, So I don't know what that means.
Well, see, that's interesting because and I want for those tuning in to listen to what Yashika and I are sharing, because again, this is a part of your journey that will also elicit an emotional, and that is an emotion, and that is looking at yourself as maybe part of the challenge that has to change. Because it's easy, and people take this whole thing where they're like, look, I'm not, no, it's not me, it's them, it's always them. And so the thought that, the mere suggestion of looking at oneself as what I may be doing, and that's to say that you aren't doing anything, but what's wrong with just looking into yourself and seeing what that is? I mean, that was something, you want to talk about growth, that was something that I had to say, like, wow, as I really wrote this down. And I mean, for me, I'm big on writing it down and just reading it and replaying conversations. And I'm like, you know what, Ron, if I would have done this, or if I asked this question, there could have been a different outcome. So again, a lesson that'll, emotion, like you get defensive at first, like no, these women, I can't be bothered, and then you say, you know what could I have done differently? And then you write it down, and if you and see the thing about the brain is that if you ask it a question, it's going to give you an answer. So here is what's so key in the space of dating and relationships when we talk about communications and emotions. Be real clear, intentional, and get very good at asking it good questions. Is the answer going to serve you or not serve you? Because I can assure you, the brain will give it an answer. Why me, God? Because you're stupid, because you are short, because you're ugly, because what it will give you an answer. What could I have done different? Well, maybe you could have been more communicative to her or him. You could smile more. You could have been more lenient and decide to give this person another chance for a second date because they didn't move. Again, it will give you an answer. So what answer are you looking for? Something that's going to serve you, or you just want some kind of confirmation of something you're dealing with in your subconscious? And if you're having a challenge with those questions or what to ask, again, this is where going to datingdiscussions.com and reaching out to Yasheka or I or both of us to help you in that space. Because part of what we're talking about is being honest about these emotions, and sometimes you don't know how to process it. So when you're talking to two people who between us have many years of experience of dealing with this, we can give you and help you navigate this place because it can be scary. But know that we've been through this personally and professionally. And so with that being the case, if this is something that you feel is a bit heavy for you and you're having some challenge processing it, reach out for a consultation. Yasheka and I are more than qualified to help you in this space. So make sure that this is the year that you take your dating space serious, your emotions seriously, and you invest in yourself. And that will also elicit the emotion of joy and knowing that now you really are looking towards fulfillment in your relationship and not just achievement where you're just getting the date. Great, you got a date, but now what? So I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add on to that, Yasheka.
No, I wanted to touch back to when you mentioned about if you ask the question, the brain will give you an answer. And if I was to give someone some advice about that, one of the things that I would remind people is that when you're taking a self assessment, be honest with yourself.
Oh,
You know what
yes.
I mean? Be honest with yourself because these are your thoughts, your opinions about yourself. So don't be embarrassed. You can't embarrass your own self in front of yourself. You know what I mean? So those are your talks that you have with whatever higher power. And you just be honest with yourself. And if you need to write things down and read it and then burn it up and rip it and tear it up in order for no one else to know what your thoughts were, then do it that way if writing it down works for you. But no matter what, or send yourself an email, as if you're talking to somebody else. Send yourself an email, hello, Yasheka. I just wanted to reach out to you today because I feel this, or I noticed this about you. Just be honest with yourself. And then that way you can go back and you can look at it. Just like when you write down your goals, right? I know people that write down their wishes, what they desire, what they're asking their higher being for. They may say, I want a person that's this, that, and the third, right? Well, in that same voice, in that with that same what people say, this new saying is use that same tone or that's use that same energy. They say come with that same energy.
That same energy.
Yeah. So when you use the same energy and ask to help you see who you are clearly, because that's the self discovery part. You're not in denial about who you are. You're not in denial about, this, you're not pretending to be somebody that you're not in order to fit into this, because the authentic you is the person that needs to be there if you want to truly find someone that's going to be your person. You know what I mean? It has to be the authentic you. because this is something you have to do forever because you want this to be forever. It doesn't, you don't want it to be just for right now. You want it to be forever. So
Exactly.
you can't put on a pretend forever. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I would definitely advise somebody is to just be honest about themselves and showing up in their authenticity. And I know a lot of times we hear that word a lot in today's society about authenticity and everything, but that is a real word. That is a real word. And just being real, being authentic, being who you're going to be all the time. Don't allow your imposter to show up. So
I
yeah.
agree. I totally wholeheartedly agree. Again, invest in yourself. Make 2022 the year you invest in yourself. Make this the year that you're going to speak and connect with people who want the best for you. You obviously want the best for you, or you wouldn't have taken this on. And see, here's the thing. I have the conversation with people where, I'm always going to be the person who's going to cheer you on, no matter how many years you've said the same thing, and it may not come to fruition. But again, some of the greatest stories have been from people who've tried over and over and over again. So I want to make sure that I'm in my sincere spirit giving people the support that they need in this space
Mhm.
because I went through that as well. I've emailed myself, I've written letters, oh my goodness, Ronnie has been to more seminars than a little bit.
Right.
I've done more certifications. Hell, I was in spaces even before we know things as certifications.
Mhm.
I've read books, video. We're talking back to cassette tapes. So just, I'm aging myself. Ronnie spent money, money, dollars, cash, moolah, dinero, you pesos, you name it. I spent it on myself. And I continue to spend it on myself because I'm not about to sit up here and expect people to invest in me when I haven't invested in myself. So with that, and mind you, even what Yashika and I shared with you, just the free content is, trust me, it's worth tens of thousands of dollars, and I don't say that lightly because we're years of experience. But more than anything, we have done work on ourselves. So we're not just telling you just some stuff we read in the book or we Googled and we're sitting here trying to act like we're smarter than we really are. No, we've invested time and money into ourselves.
And we see
And
and we see the need. We see the disconnect
absolutely.
of men and women, especially with the stats. When you look at the stats of single women or divorces, or people who are bachelors and bachelorettes, it's just the numbers are steady growing, especially in certain cultures. And so you can't help but to wonder where is the disconnect, because everyone else seems to be doing fine, whether it looks good on paper or not. When we look at the statistics, it looks good on paper for everyone else but us.
Right.
So it's
Exactly.
like, okay, what are we doing? And when I say us, I mean people of color, so there's no misunderstanding. The numbers and the statistics is just crazy. It's like 3 in 10 families are mother and father in one home. That is not a good stat. That is not
Hmm.
a good stat. So when you think about it from that perspective, it's like, okay, how do we fix that? How do we? Where is the disconnect? And I mean, and especially in the generation that I'm in, which is the ones that were born in the '70s and early '80s.
Right.
It's like wow, what are we doing? So,
Right.
yeah, it's a concern. It definitely should be a concern. So as I went down this road of educating myself, in the area of marriage and family, and I just looked at it from the whole of even just from me reading in the book and then and relating it to the lives that I've seen in my family or with even relationships that I had. It's like, okay, something has to change. There's a disconnect somewhere. So that's when I spent, that time really, really understanding a lot about relationships, about family, about the family origin, about, you know, a man and then a woman and then a man and woman together, and it's just, it's a lot of different combinations out there, and I don't really care how we do it, but just as long as we all find someone and somebody that we can rock with. you know, and that's
Exactly.
all we want.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, I could go on and on and on, but I don't want. I just wanted to really just kind of recover and reiterate some spaces that I think needed repeating, because I don't want what we share to get lost in the shuffle. Because get it, if there's anything managers you can know, is that there are many, 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 many voices that you can go out there and listen to. But you know, we're not going to sit here and bash other people. Anybody with a microphone and a camera or a laptop can get on a platform and say whatever they're saying. But I need you to understand that what Yashika and I have is experience, and we've done the work. And so I'm not going to sit up here and drop names and say, don't listen to this person, don't listen to that person. You have free will. You have free will. And you have the ability to go out there and search for what you're, but I'm telling you, we are the real deal. We're people who really care about this. We've surveyed what's out there, and we do know that there is a need for what we're sharing. So, with that being said, again, go to datingdiscussions.com and you'll see some background information on Yashika. You'll see some background info on us. And if just to reach out for a question or some things that you'd like us to cover, we're more than qualified and more than able to do that. We'd be happy to do this for you because we want, as Yashika likes to say, we want you to get the love so you can get the love making. So with that being said, reach out. You have our Cash App information. If you would like to show the support for the platform in a different way, it's much appreciated, as well as going to the YouTube channel and subscribing and hit the notification bell so that you're live and direct when we go live. Because I can tell you, we've got some master classes coming up that's going to blow your mind, unlike anything that you've out there heard. So look forward to that. So with that being said, I think I've said everything that I'm going to say at
Yeah,
this
I just
particular
wanted to
time.
see was
So
it
it's,
was if you were going to give someone, because I know for me, I said to just be honest and show up in your authentic self, and be honest with yourself and showing up authentically. What would be a piece of advice that you would give someone to really, really make sure that in 2022, that if their dating their dating style hadn't worked for them before, or the way they approach dating, what if you can give someone just one strong piece of advice aside from the what I mentioned, what would be something you would tell someone?
well, if once you discover what it is, tweak it, and then follow through. And when I say follow through, it means that don't try it once, don't try it twice, try it 3 or 4 times. Because just your body language, your energy sometimes has to catch up to this new mind frame that you're in. Because let's face it, Yashika, finding something new about yourself and being honest about it and accepting it can be quite, jolting for many.
Hmm.
But once you do that and you say, you know what, this is new to me, but I'm going to move forward.
Hmm.
And then you ask yourself, why are you moving forward? And again, if you ask the brain why or a question, it's going to give you an answer. Why? Because, Ronnie, the past 2 years, what you were trying didn't work. Why? Well, because what you chose to entertain has been nothing but disappointment and failed expectations. Why, Ronnie? Well, because here I am celebrating another Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year that I've said for the past 2, 3 years without someone. Something has to give. And I know it's not just them because there are other people who were single that are now engaged and married and they're kissing under the mistletoe and they're watching the ball drop together. So maybe I do know, but I need to accept that and be authentic and move forward with it instead of just knowing it. So, knowledge is only powerful if you use the knowledge. Other than that, it's just knowledge.
Yeah.
So that is what I would do. Follow through on what you're going to do. And I can assure you, you'll be in a different space in the 2022.
Yeah, and don't be hard on yourself either.
Yeah, yes, that's
Some
true.
people have this thing where, oh my God, oh my God. I know for me, speaking of New Year's, I bought in New Year's single, meaning that I wasn't with anyone, but that was a choice. You know what I mean? And so if you know that that's the space you need to be in, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
There's
That's
nothing
true.
wrong with that. But if you know that there's some things that you need to do differently and some changes that you need to make because they haven't been serving you and you want a little bit more in life or a little bit more, and you know that there's a disconnect when it comes to you and your dating mindset, definitely look for Ronnie and I. And you can our information is in the description. You can check out follow us on any of the platforms, Twitter as well as Facebook and Instagram, and over there on YouTube as well. He
Yes.
has a channel, I have a channel, then we have this channel together. Dating discussions with Ronnie and Yasheka dating discussions. So Ronnie, that is it for today. Do you have any parting words, sir?
Other than the fact that it's once again a pleasure to do yet another episode with you, Yashika, and all those that are tuning in, I want to thank you for the support in 2021. We're looking for you to stay with us here in 2022. Take the time to share with those that you feel can benefit from what we have here. So I think we've got some great material moving forward, different events that we're going to put forth to you. We've got a lot of great goodies planned for you in 2022. So we want to thank you for the support. And as always, to my lovely co-host Shashika, I thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You as well.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone.